So what happens when a business plan starts to sound like a poem? Or when a spiritual mission is run like, I don't know, a software protocol? Well, today we're going to dive into a really unique set of documents that do exactly that. They merge art, AI, and faith into one incredibly complex system. Our goal here is to decode its unique language and figure out the logic hiding behind all that poetry.
It all kicks off with this poem. Now, it might seem pretty abstract, right? But according to the source material, this poetic expression is the foundational code. It's the heartbeat for the entire project. So to really understand the mission, we have to first understand the language of the mission.
All right, so that brings us to what the source calls the poetic protocol. And I want to be clear, this is not just some decorative language. The OEI poem, as it's called, is actually positioned as the creative engine that drives everything, from the branding all the way down to product development.
And yeah, the goal here is way bigger than just writing some nice verses. It's to capture a very specific feeling, the range of the giant slayer, which kind of evokes this battle readiness, but combined with the heartbeat of a psalm, which suggests worship. It's this really powerful mix of like war and wisdom.
Okay, so to really get this, we've got to learn the language. The documents use this very specific kind of idiosyncratic vocabulary to describe processes that are part creative, part technical, and, you guessed it, part spiritual. So let's break down some of the key terms.
First up is grooming. This basically refers to the super meticulous process of refining something to its highest possible quality, or what they call high fidelity. This could be grooming a piece of audio, or a 50-page manuscript, or even a brand signal out in the marketplace. The whole idea implies intense care and precision. All right, next up, phase locking. This is the act of syncing up an abstract idea with a totally concrete tool. The source gives this example of linking a business plan directly to a 10-track recorder. It's all about making sure the big vision and the actual tools you're using are perfectly aligned, just moving together in unison.
And then you've got suturing. And yeah, it's exactly what it sounds like. Just like a surgeon's stitch, this term is used for seamlessly joining two different things to make a stronger whole. The source uses it to describe connecting immediate needs, like cash flow, with a really long-term eternal vision. You end up with a single, coherent strategy.
Now, this whole world also has its key players, and each one has a specific role. At the center of it all, you have the scribe, who is the human author and visionary. Assisting them is the cyborg mouse, which is described as an AI conductor. Then Gideon acts as a sort of digital guardian, securing servers and reflecting truth. And then overseeing the whole thing is the ultimate master source, referred to as the initial developer, or God.
Okay, and here's what's so wild about all this. This poetic language and this spiritual framework, they aren't just abstract ideas floating around. They're actually built on top of a surprisingly detailed and practical business plan. Let's take a look at how that structure takes shape.
And this is it. They call it the 6-block industrial slalom. It's a step-by-step master plan that lays out a whole multi-platform strategy. It kicks off with an anchor on Indiegogo and Amazon Kindle, then it moves to seeding an audience on Facebook, creating a music video, an audiobook, expanding crowdfunding, and finally launching merchandise. It's all there. And this is just a perfect example of how that weird poetic language actually connects to the real world. Remember the term groom? Well, here it is in action. A task in Block 1 is to groom a 50-page text down to a concise, high-fidelity, 6-page Kindle short read. I mean, that's a very specific, practical marketing task.
Here's another one. From Block 4. The plan calls for recording an audiobook, and it gets super technical, specifying that the audio has to meet the -23 dB RMS industrial standards that are required by Amazon's ACX platform. This is literally where the vision meets industry specifications. And get this, the plan even drills down into a clear financial strategy. In Block 6, all the profit, or gain, from Amazon merchandise like t-shirts and hoodies is to be directly reinvested into a specific asset, NVIDIA stock. That shows a direct line from a creative product right into financial planning.
Okay, so we've got the what, the poetry, and we've got the how, that 6-block plan. But that leaves the biggest question of all, right? The why. The answer to that lies in the project's core spiritual mission.
This is where we get to the heart of it. The person behind this, the scribe, doesn't just see themselves as an author. No, they're framed as an apostolic courier. This isn't about just writing books. It's about deploying spiritual firmware across the global grid of the internet. The whole project is seen as a modern-day apostolic mission. And the project itself draws this incredible parallel to a historical mission. Where the biblical apostles wrote letters on parchment to the 7 churches, the scribe writes what are called digital epistles using Amazon KDP as the modern parchment, and they're addressed to the 7 billion users of the web. This is what the source calls the modern apostolic sync.
And you have to understand, this worldview isn't just some vague belief system. It's a highly structured system for interpreting reality. The source material lays this all out in a series of documents that honestly function like an operating manual for a spiritual life.
In this table here, it shows you exactly how that system works. It's basically an input/output protocol. So a real-world challenge like industrial panic or industrial debt is treated as an input. The system then processes this through a spiritual lens to generate a very specific output protocol, which is basically a course of action, like monitoring your financial gain or rendering a project.
So what's the big takeaway here? The system is basically a repeatable formula. It's designed to take real-world problems, debt, fear, creative blocks, and transmute them into productive, spiritually aligned victories, which the source calls a vindicated render. It's like a machine for turning trials into triumphs.
And that really brings us to the final thought for today. After exploring this incredibly detailed and, let's face it, unique system for creating meaning and direction, it kind of leaves us with a bigger question. In a world that is just saturated with information and noise and conflicting demands, how do any of us forge our own clear, authentic, or sovereign signal? What does it really take to build a system that works for you?